Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. So in today's video, I'm going to be playing with this Grey Positivity stamp set from Funky Fossil Designs. I've got some gel prints that I've made a while ago and I've had them in my stash for a while, so it's a perfect opportunity to really use them for some collage and background in my art journal. I've got this lucky number background stamp and I've already got some of that stamped out on those scraps, but as you'll see later on, I decided to do something a little bit different with that stamp set. I'm using this Talens Art Journal. It's watercolour paper and it really holds well to lots of different mediums, so I'm really enjoying using it. To adhere all the collage down, we'll be using some matte medium today. Now in this range of multimedia matte bottle, I have got Indigoblu matte medium at the moment, so I just found it easier to transfer it into that pot so that I could then use it with my paintbrush. So that's all I'm going to do, add some matte medium to the page and attach the collage over the top. And I'll just be doing this randomly with all these little bits of gel prints. I really want to use a good contrast of colour on the page and I really want it to be nice and bright and vibrant. So yeah, I'm just kind of tearing it. I like the ripped edge look, especially when you're doing collage. I think it just adds a little bit more character and depth to the page. Now, art journaling is also a great way of using up packaging. Now, I've got this tissue paper. It recently came in a box of shoes that I purchased, and it's just covered in green circles. Now, I love that when I add this to the page with matte medium, the tissue paper kind of blends into the background, but those green circles sit on the top. So it just adds another layer to the page, which looks really lovely. For the focal images on my page, I've got this Heartfelt journal collage paper pad. These are A4, they're nice and thin because they're designed for collage. And I'm just going to fussy cut a few of the images out. I really love this one because it's just black and white. So there's lots of elements that you can really take from it that can really stand out on your page. But of course you could always add colour to them if you wanted to as well. So I'm just going to quickly fussy cut around these with my Cutter Bee scissors. I find these are great for fussy cutting, but of course because collage papers are very thin, you could probably use just normal scissors and you'd be absolutely fine fussy cutting. For the sentiment, I'm going to use the Grey Positive Thoughts sentiment from the Grey Positivity stamp set from Funky Fossil Designs. This collection was designed by Art Journal Love. For some background stamping, I'm going to use this Checkerboard collage stamp from Funky Fossil. This was designed by Olga and I love that it's got checkerboard, it's got some text in, it's also got some numbers as well, so it's great for background stamping. I'm using Versafine Clair black ink for today's stamping, and of course I waited for the matte medium to dry completely before I started doing these stamping on top. Now you do need to be mindful that because the matte medium's already layered on the page, it does take the black ink a while to dry. So I do go ahead and speed that up with my heat gun before I add any other elements to this page. Of course you could just leave it to dry, but it probably would take 24 hours before it's completely set on the page. And even then it might be a little bit damp. So of course you could use a different type of ink, maybe it'll dry a little bit quicker, but I love the Versafine Clair for the bold black stamped images that you get. Now, I also decide to stamp the lucky number stamp on the tissue paper as well. But you'll see that it's a little bit messy here. I should have done it on my glass mat. Because the tissue paper is so thin, the ink goes straight through the paper and onto my desk, which is a little bit messy. But I quickly get my e-cloth and some water and I'm just able to rub that away from the desk. And of course I can go back over it with a little bit of hand gel later on. So just be mindful of that. I just grab my metal ruler now and I just put that down on the page and then just tear the edges along with it. This is just so that I get a slightly rougher edged look. Of course you could just trim it with scissors or tear it by hand. But I just wanted to kind of get those strips of excess off. And as you can see, I've made a right mess of my desk. Anyway, now I'm going to just tear that up and I'm just going to decide where I want that over the background. Another great thing about the tissue paper is, of course, the layers underneath are still going to show through the tissue paper layers that we're putting over the top. So this is a great way of adding some real depth and dimension to a page without adding too much bulk. So once I'm happy that I've layered that, I'm just going to go over that with my heat tool just to dry off the black ink on the tissue paper and also just to dry the matte medium as well. And then I'm going to come in with my main focal image. So I decide I'm going to just use half of the face on this page, and I'm just going to decide where I want the placement of these hearts. Because the sentiment is grow positive thoughts, I kind of thought the hearts were nice, like speech bubbles or thought bubbles on the page in heart shape. So that's my kind of thought process behind my journal page. For the grow positive thoughts sentiment, I'm just going to use a piece of scrap white cardstock from my stash, and I'm just going to line that up on an all and create acrylic block. And again, I'm just using the Versafine Clair black ink today to do the stamping. Once I've stamped my image, I'm then able to cut that down. But first, I'm just going to add a little bit of stenciling on the background as well. This is really not necessary, but I really just wanted to add another little layer. This is the Scribble circle stencil from Funky Fossil Designs, and I'm just going around the circles with a white Posca pen. This is another great technique to use with your stencils. Remember, you don't just have to use distress inks through them or paints through them. You can, of course, come through with pens and go around the edges of the image. So that's all I'm doing here with the Posca pen. I'm then able to just use my e-cloth and some water just to wipe over that and remove any excess paint. And then I'm able to come in with my matte medium and just attach that focal image down. And again, I've been able to do the same with the hearts, just add some matte medium and seal those on the page as well. Next, I'm going to attach the sentiment down. So I'm just going to trim it down. I'm going to separate all the words, and then I'm just going to use some quick grab glue and attach those down to the page. I'm just going to stagger them along the bottom just so that they kind of sit nicely around the focal images on the page. Next, we're just going to add some finishing touches to the page. So I've got a black watercolour pencil, and all I'm doing is dipping it in a little bit of water to soften it, and then I'm just drawing lines around the sentiment, around the words. And I'm going to do the same around the hearts just to add a little bit of shadowing. Now, of course, you could just use a black Posca pen, a black felt tip pen, or just a fine liner, however you like to add detail to your work. But I particularly like using a watercolour pencil because you can kind of smudge out the edges because it's water reactive. It just gives a bit more detail and depth. So I quite like being able to do that. So next, I'm just going to turn over the page and I'm just going to trim off the excess from behind using my Cut-A-Bee scissors. Then we'll have a nice clean edge to which to do some stamping around the outside of the page, just to really finish it off and give it a nice border. So to do that, I'm going to use this Checkerboard stain stamp. It's only an A7 stamp, so it's perfect to hold in the hand and just to add some extra background stamping. But today I'm going to use it to create a border on this piece. I just really kind of feel like adding a border just frames a page nicely. So again, I'm just going to use the Versafine Clair black ink, and I'm just going to go all the way around the edges. Now, I chose to use the Checkerboard stamp because when we used the other background stamp earlier on, the Checkerboard Collage, that had Checkerboard in it as well. So I just really felt that this would kind of bring the whole piece together. For that inner edge, all I'm going to do is take a black Posca pen and I'm just going to run that along the edge of the page. And then just to finish, I'm going to add a few white splatters of acrylic paint. So that's the finished journal page for today. I really hope that you've enjoyed seeing my process, how I've put this page together and all the details that have gone into the background. Please let me know in the comments below whether you've enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.